everyone. Welcome to Taqueando. I'm your host, Bill Esparza, and this week we are going to Oaxaca, California. On our trip, we are going to meet some incredible people, and most importantly, a very good friend of mine, and also a director of Cielo. Cielo is the Comunidades Indígenas en Liderazgo, and it's been around since 2016, and the executive director Odilia Romero is with us today. Her organization is about advocating for human rights for Indigenous people. A year before Cielo came Poncho's Tlayudas, opened by Odilia's partner, Poncho Martinez, featuring Tlayudas. Poncho's Tlayudas does Tlayudas from the Valles Centrales with a Sierra Norte touch. Odilia has been fighting the good fight, especially during the pandemic, raising money to get Indigenous people vaccinations for COVID, getting them food, getting them money. Also fighting in the courts for families being separated under both the Trump and Biden administrations, providing interpreters in court for people who speak Indigenous languages. And Odilia was also one of the leaders behind bringing down the City of Los Angeles council members that were embroiled in a scandal over racist remarks that were recorded. In that recording, they did say racist things towards Indigenous people, which was an outrageous thing here in Los Angeles. A lot of people don't know that this is the second largest Oaxacan city on the planet. And of course, many of the Oaxacans, a majority living here, are Indigenous people. Cielo, Odilia's organization, was involved in that action, and every day is out there helping Indigenous people. Lately, it's been giving out food for people that are having to stay home during the ICE raids that have descended upon Los Angeles. So here with me today, I'm welcoming my friend and badass advocate, Odilia Romero. But first, let's talk about where I ate this week. And always at Taqueando, we are taqueando for our favorite antojitos, the things that we love, the cravings. And this week, I actually went to Poncho's Tlayudas. I will be talking later on to Odilia Romero, who's also a part of Poncho's Tlayudas. And Poncho's Tlayudas is only around for a few more weeks before they open their brand new restaurant, Lugia. And I got to try the Tlayuda once more, and I hadn't had it in a while. I had not had it at the restaurant. It's maybe been 4 or 5 months since I was there, and it tastes as good as ever. Can we find a better Tlayuda in Oaxaca City? No. You can find one as good, but Poncho's style is very unique. And that blood sausage, I'm sorry, chefs, all your fine dining spots in town cannot compete with this moronga, this artisanal blood sausage, that Poncho produces and serves with his tlayudas, which is not traditional in Oaxaca City. This is a dish from the Sierra Norte that I just adore. I actually find myself very, very stingily curating each bite, and I never want to run out of blood sausage before I go through my tlayuda. So I will actually go for the cecina first, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, how many more bites of this can I take without touching the moronga? Because I really want to finish with that flavor. That's how much I love that dish. So get out there. There are only 3 more Fridays of Poncho's Tlayudas before they close in anticipation of their new restaurant. The other beautiful dinner I went to this week was the collab at Simon in Venice with Chef Jose and Chef Gilberto Cetina of Holbox. They did a really different kind of pop-up that I hadn't seen. Instead of just alternating dishes between Simon and Holbox, they collabed on every plate, which started off with a shellfish trio that had a razor clam, an East Coast clam done with an aguachile and an oyster, and they collabed on the sauces. They did a side-by-side tostadas. One's the Simon way, one the Holbox way. But the best dish, the one that we love the most, was this grilled abalone on top of a sweet corn bollo. So that literally was both chefs like just combining their flavors into one dish. And I can tell that Chef Jose and Chef Gilberto really love each other. like they love working together. And I mean, I don't know if they love each other, but they love working together, really seem to have a great connection and just enjoyed themselves. Oh, and the last part of it is they did a little taquiza of a deep fried fish collar and some dry aged fish with camarones a la diabla that we had with tortillas from Comal, of course, and salsas, including the Holbox Kut, which is a very spicy salsa that really made us happy making tacos with those items. I also did a quick visit to Muelle Ocho that just recently reopened. And my friends, this place is right out of Sinaloa, right out of Culiacan. The aguachiles, the ceviches are one of my favorite places to go in town. So I really recommend Muelle Ocho, which is back in business as a food trailer. And Mariscos El Chiltepin was sort of AWOL for a minute, but he's back on the streets there in Vernon doing his incredible aguachiles. And if you can handle it, I really recommend the one he does with Carolina Reaper. So it's got a little bit of chiltepin with Carolina Reaper. It's not so much. It's not going to knock you on the floor or anything like that, but it's pretty damn spicy. And I really love a very spicy aguachile, and I really recommend it. But you don't have to get you can get the more mild ones as well. And you can ask for him to make it more mild. Not the Carolina Reaper one, but the other ones. I also recently was at the Hollywood Bowl and got to kind of get a tour of all of Suzanne Gowen's and Carolyn Stein's restaurants there at the Hollywood Bowl, their marketplace, backyard. We enjoyed backyard before we went and saw Juanes, who did an incredible performance, one of my favorite artists. And that's it for this week. A lot of eating, a lot of places that I've been to recently that I haven't been able to talk about here on the podcast, but I wanted to catch you up on all these wonderful antojitos and all the restaurants I've just told you about. Go support. Before we get into our conversation with Odilia, a quick reminder that Taqueando is part of the Acquired Taste family. Be sure to listen to our sister podcast, the LA Food Podcast, and that'll be out on Friday. And now, vamos a taquear. Hello, Odilia.
Hey, Padios, it's a pleasure to be here with you, and we appreciate you considering Cielo for this amazing podcast.
Yes. Well, I kind of, I think I started out announcing this that we'd be talking to Indigenous people and talking about Indigenous restaurants, and we have, but this is the first time I've had an Indigenous guest. So I'm really excited about that. One of the things I want to talk to you about today is this incredible relationship, before we get into the food, is this incredible relationship that your community and the communities that you represent and work with have with Los Angeles, Southern California, California in general, and back home in their pueblos in Oaxaca and other states, also Central America, the Maya people. And this idea of a binational really way of life that's really important. I've learned, and you and I've had conversations before that, I first learned about this really through you, is that some pueblos here have more people living here from the pueblo here in Los Angeles than back home, and that they have to annually go back to take care of things like church and ceremonial things. And there's also other types of things that need to be done in the town that are not getting done because a lot of the people are living here. So can you talk to me about this really incredible binational relationship? Really start with your town. And can you please tell me where you're from? I know, but I want you to say it. So tell me the town you're from and, the relationship your town has with Los Angeles here.
Well, my town, my name is Odilia Romero. I am from San Bartolome Sogocho up in the highlands of Oaxaca in the Sierra Norte. And my community has been here since the Bracero program, and then we migrated here in the late 60s, early 70s, with a mass migration in the 80s, and I would say a final migration, but of people after the North American free trades were signed. So a lot of us are here. We are a binational community. Of course, there's those of us that live here in Los Angeles that are like second, third generation already of Sogochenses living here. But there's also a group in Mexico City, and there's a group in Oaxaca City, and of course there's a people in the community, right? And for me, it's we're a community like binational, bicultural, because a lot of us were born here in LA or that were brought here as children in LA. We're part of the Angelino community. Of course, we like the Lakers. Of course, we like Kendrick Lamar, but also we go back home and they're able to drink a good mezcal, hang out with the community, speak our language. But also, we speak our language here. We drink a good mezcal here. We have patron saint celebration here. And what to me is, I mean, I'm gonna toot my own horn here, but my community is amazing because they did a great job for us to have an identity here in LA. We would not be proud Sowochenses without the work of all the first migrants that came to Los Angeles, that created the hometown associations, that made sure that we had jarabes, that made sure that the patron saint celebration was kept. And you would say, well, that's a colonial. I mean, why are you talking about the saint? Well, let me tell you, they brought a lot of bad things. The one thing that they did bring is the saint, and that was has kept us together to this day. We organize around the patron saint celebration as a community. And when there's an event here, there's an event in Mexico City, in Oaxaca City, and back home. Which for me is an amazing way of organizing. And that's for my pueblo, but Oaxaca, California, of course, has many pueblos from the Sierra Norte to the Mixteca to the Chinantla. Everybody reorganizes. We've been doing this for so long, 530 plus years of resistance, of reorganizing, rebuilding every moment. So once we were displaced to the US, we rebuilt. And here we are.
Right. And so you mentioned like NAFTA. A lot of people don't understand how NAFTA affected the economy in Mexico and caused a lot of the migration. Also, the peso crisis was one thing, which in the 90s. And then there were several peso crises. There were several peso crises. And then but before that, now some of the Oaxacans that came here to Los Angeles came as braceros as well, right?
Yes, a lot of people from the Sierra Norte did come here during the Bracero program, and of course, they were sent back home. And I remember a man called Chori, and I never think that about it until much later that he had come as a Bracero, and his nickname they gave him here was Shorty, and then he came back home as Chori. And you're like, oh, that's where it comes from. There's a lot of involvement with music. I recently went to an amazing museum in the Sierra Norte, where in San Francisco Cajonos, and they have a museum from pre-colonial to colonial to the migration until today. And it was crazy to think of indigenous Zapotecs coming back from Texas with what are they called, banjos?
Yeah.
And came back with a music group with banjo instruments and an accordion, and you're like, well, what happened, but they came back home and these items are in this museum, and they're like, they came back, and then there's a song that is very close to our heart. Most of us in the Sierra Norte, I don't know about the valleys, but or other pueblos, but south of the border, that song is it's played in every patron saint celebration.
Wow.
The music brass bands, right? So we have been a binational or a binational, bicultural, bimusical, everything since we were displaced here since the Bracero program. I know, al sur de la frontera.
Yeah. So right. So it's a long line of migrations from your pueblo and Oaxaca in general. But at some point, there became to be enough people from your town. Now, I've been to one of didn't I go to one of the Guelaguetzas from your communities or some maybe it was the patron saint celebration.
We don't celebrate Guelaguetza as the festival or as a dance. Actually, Guelaguetza is an action of solidarity, of serving the people. Like, say, it's your birthday. I'm gonna pitch in, I'm gonna pay for the band for your birthday.
Right.
And then when it's my birthday or I have an event, and you will bring back that band or another band. So it's an action of solidarity, or what they call mutual aid nowadays. So that's what the Guelaguetza is. My town doesn't celebrate it. I didn't know about the Guelaguetza when I came here. I didn't learn about the Guelaguetza until Oaxaca became a trend, because we practice the Guelaguetza Uzun. That's what we call the Guelaguetza in our language, right? And what you went to is a patron saint celebration.
Was the patron saint
Yes.
celebration? Yes, that is fascinating because I would say as a Chicano raised Catholic who doesn't, isn't religious anymore. I did always find it funny that like so many, indigenous people are so religious, but I do see the value in how it's created this reason for gathering and reason for staying together, and that's amazing. I mean, look, I'm a Chicano from Stockton, and we don't do shit back in Stockton. We go back and see family, but we don't do anything for the city or to try to keep everybody together. And when it's sort of like I say as a Mexican American, when you leave your town, you leave it and you don't look back in a certain way. But in your community, you never really truly leave your town.
We never, yeah, we go back. Like, for example, one of the things that we found out through a documentary that Cielo is doing is our first school was actually created by the migrants, by the braceros. That later, of course, the government takes over and says, I'm creating el Centro de Integración Social Sogochense. But the school, the building itself was created by the braceros, and I'm not gonna share a lot about it because it's in the works. But what we learn is the people from here sent a paycheck, the people from Mexico, and the people that were back home did their tequio, which is the work for the benefit of all, to build that building that now is a very popular. Now the school is very famous for all the musicians. It's a boarding school, but it was the community that built the first building that it sits on, and it was
Yeah.
it's a whole another story. But that's the story of a lot of indigenous towns that they send money to build the road, they send money to build infrastructure, to bring potable water, to bring electricity. This was all done because of the migration and displacement of people, because I mean people were abandoned by the Mexican government. Indigenous people are excluded from these institutions, from schools,
Yeah.
from having access to social mobility. So they organized, they built it.
No, I mean, like it's funny that one of the biggest arguments I use all the time when people talk about like outside cuisines like Spanish cuisine influencing Mexican cuisine. We have an episode on that, folks. So go back there. But is that there are indigenous communities in 2025 that still haven't aren't touched. Like the Spanish never really made it there in those places, and the Mexican government is still never made it in those places. That you are still without essential services, and people are still practicing the food ways they've always practiced, and they're still eating native ingredients, native animals, and things like supermarkets are not around, and even in some pueblos there aren't even mini markets that coming across beef and animals like that. It's not like as easy as it is to find other more localized foods, right?
Well, one eats what's available, right? In the case of indigenous people, you eat what's in your area.
Sure.
For example, we don't eat seafood. Why? Because there's no sea next to us.
Yeah.
There's some river trouts, there's skunks.
You eat skunks.
I've eaten skunk, and he is amazingly delicious with avocado leaves. With tamal de frijol. You eat possums, which is, I mean, amazingly delicious. I know.
Yeah.
I don't. I would feel bad, but it's what's there. You know. I remember as a child, we would only have meat once a week because the market in Sogocho would only be once a week, where the neighboring towns will come and sell, and you would get one that beef or that pork that once a week.
Right.
And if you have money, you were able to buy the better parts of the meat, right? But if you didn't, then you will just buy like the the pedacerias, or the, I guess, the leftovers. I don't know what's the word for this.
Yeah.
But and with that you made, I love these delicious tacos de asiento de res.
Yeah.
If you were poor, you get these little strings of fat. You melt it in the comal and the tortilla with a salsa and coffee. That was it.
Yeah. A lard taco. Beautiful.
A large taco. Yeah, it's amazing. you know.
Yeah, and of course, one of the most incredible things about this whole binational relationship is how now there are so many channels that have been created to bring the foods from your communities. I know you bring in lots of things, either when you travel or that are sent by family members, and a lot of it goes through Tijuana.
A lot of the I mean, when I travel and what's permitted to bring, I bring, right, like the dehydrated tasajo and stuff, or the jerky. It's closer to a jerky, but most people just bring them through the through Tijuana, or there's now proper channels of imports,
Right.
which is really great. That wasn't always, we didn't always have access to our food. I think in the 80s we didn't have access to our jerky. We didn't have access to the pumpkin seeds or to our chintesle. And now we do in their proper ways, but also now the chiles are here that you can make your own chintesle. Actually, I just had a taco of chintesle, by the way.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, and so like we'll talk more about how Oaxaca, California cuisine is unique, but I kind of want to go back to what year did you arrive here?
In 1981.
In 1981. So so when you got here, Oaxacans were here in the kitchens already, and they had been probably in the kitchen since the 70s.
Yeah, there's a beautiful story written by some Quinones
Yes.
about how Oaxacans made it to the kitchen, right? From the Sierra Norte, this man from Yatache El Alto, El Bajo, I don't remember. He learned English, he was trilingual, and he started, bringing people into Hamburger Hamlet. And a lot of my community,
Right. I thought this was the Hamburger Hamlet story, right?
and this is how we got into the kitchen. And then it was the Cheesecake Factory, and then other restaurants, like the Zapotec community. And again, so that they don't drag me out in the internet, I'm talking about my experience as a Zapoteca Serrana, from my communities, from the communities I come from in the Sierra Zapoteca. Most of them, were in the restaurant industry. There's a group from the neighboring town from Solaga that are in the dry cleaning industry, right?
Okay.
A lot of the men work in the restaurant industry, and a lot of the women work in the garment industry. And there's one particular town that is dedicated to working in the dry cleaning, but most of us are in the kitchen.
Right. And so in the 70s and 80s, you had Zapotecos, mostly Zapotecos, because Mixtecos are more, well, they're in many things. They're in the farms, living in the camp, right? A lot of the people that are in the farm picking fruit and vegetables are Mixtecos, as well as they do other jobs. But the Zapotecos ended up in the kitchen, and obviously, besides being, great cooks, great workers, but they were also picking up business skills and learning how to run restaurants. And so, do you know when the first Oaxacan-owned restaurant opened?
From what we know and the data that we know, it was this one little place on Western. I don't remember right now what was the name of the restaurant.
Are you talking about Nelly's?
I don't know if it was called Nelly's or Tamarindo. I don't remember, but it was a.
So there is a place called Nelly's that opened in 1989. This is in the port done by Felipe Lopez. There's a big paper on Zapotecos y Mixtecos in California in the restaurants.
Oh yeah,
And they,
on the indigenous Mexican migrants in the United States.
yes, and so Nelly's, they list Nelly's as the first Oaxacan owned restaurant that wasn't doing necessarily Oaxacan food, maybe some things. And they were from Tlacolula. But kind of the big one, I think the big breakthrough, and probably the first time I ever had mole in a restaurant in Los Angeles was at Tlapasola Grill. Do you remember them?
No, I don't remember them.
So this was like a fancy place. And I first heard about them like when I moved to LA in 95. And I remember there was this radio show, I think it's called Feed Your Face, with Merrill Schindler. And Merrill Schindler would talk about, I just remember him talking way too much about Yang Chow and Buca de Beppo, like was a sponsor or something. But he would talk about restaurants, and he also was the editor of the Zagat Guide. So do you remember the little Zagat book? And so I picked that up because I was listening to Merrill Schindler. So I went and got my Zagat Guide, and I was looking through, and I started bookmarking restaurants way before I was a writer or anything. And I remember seeing Tlapasola Grill, and I went to go check it out, and they had mole, and they had early crema de mezcal. They had the few mezcal that was available in the early '90s, you know,
Mm.
mid '90s when I went there. And then I remember seeing Dustin Hoffman there one night I was there, but I would go there a lot, and but they would feature several types of moles, and it was the first time I was seeing in the United States plates with two moles on the plate, different moles, and then they do green rice, and it was sort of fancy. It was like a fancy restaurant, and they were from San Marcos La Pasola.
It makes sense. Coca-Cola Grill.
Yeah, and so there were a couple of brothers that they opened in '92. So, and I moved to LA at the end of '95. So somewhere, by '96, I probably went there. And they were on the west side.
We don't necessarily eat mole in my region.
Yes, I know that. Now, yes, we'll talk about we'll talk about that. But most of the restaurants that are open, that are Oaxacan restaurants, are from one region, the Valles Centrales de Oaxaca, and they do mole. So yes, no, no, no. So for listeners, mole is not in all the there are 8 regions of Oaxaca, and not everybody eats mole. So I know you didn't grow up with that, but
Doña Maria, after I came here in the U.S.
yeah, you had your first mole.
Yeah, Doña Maria.
Doña Maria?
Yes.
Okay.
This is it's like when mole came. When I first tried mole, it was my mom making mole Doña Maria here in the U.S., but also added her own little twist, adding more tomatoes. And once you went back home, as migration begins, mole makes it up in the highlands.
Yes. I mean, so my first mole growing up was Doña Maria, also from my abuela from Aguascalientes, and she would also add her own little things to tweak it. So yes, I grew up with Doña Maria. I know that flavor as I know Heinz ketchup.
Yeah, and I love that flavor, of that Doña Maria mole, just like I love ketchup.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm that person that will eat, that American breakfast with ketchup, and yes, you all could drag me Tabasco, okay?
Yeah. We also that was one of the hot sauces you could get back then.
I love Tabasco.
Cholula didn't come till much later. I want to say like Cholula in the '80s, but like yeah, Tabasco. My grandfather, at home he had Tabasco on the kitchen table because that's the only hot sauce we had.
Yeah, I love Tabasco with American breakfast.
Yes.
With scrambled hash brown, ketchup, and Tabasco. I know.
That's so funny that you and I, me being a Mexican American, you an Indigenous person, have Doña Maria in common. Because I did have a meetup with a person from the Valles Centrales that was giving me shit about the Doña Maria being my first mole. And I'm like, okay, well, Aguascalientes is not my family, it's not a big mole state. And certainly we didn't have these ingredients to make moles in the '70s. So my grandmother had Doña Maria. So sue us.
Well, the thing is, like, migration for people are very different, and
Right.
I think there's like this conception that everything from south of the border, we all eat burritos, we all eat tacos, we eat tortilla in different ways, and that we all speak Spanish, right? And everybody in Oaxaca, everybody drinks mezcal, everybody eats mole,
Yes.
everybody. And no, Oaxaca has an amazing. I mean, it's Mesoamerica. It has an amazing cuisine, amazing ingredients. In my town, mole now it's popular because it came back with it got into the mountains with migration.
Right.
We have something very similar, but it doesn't have as many. It has like 5 ingredients, so it's not a mole. They call it ginashna, and it's different than a mole. It's not a mole.
Yes. I know Poncho didn't grow up eating mole.
No, I think Mole. He also has an experience with Doña Maria, and I think we're breaking people's heart here. But not all Oaxacans eat mole, or not all of us grew up with mole, right?
Right.
I didn't. I learned about Tlayudas as a migrant.
Right.
When I go to Oaxaca City, the first time they're like, "Oh, we're gonna take you to a Tlayuda." I'm like, "What is that?" Because up in the highlands, I'm used to my tortilla with asiento de res, with bioses and other stuff that is not what a Oaxacan or a Zapotec from the valley eats, because we know the valley food, which is amazing and delicious, but it's not the same thing that you're going to eat in the Sierra. It's not the same thing that you're going to eat in the Mije region or the Chinantec region
Or La
or La
Costa.
Costa or the Mixteca. When I used to go, I've never had yiki before, and when I used to go as a former field member, they will make yiki. You will drink aguardiente with all these herbs, and that's not something that was
And yeah, and for the listeners, we did talk about Yiki, which is the barbacoa mixteca on a previous episode up there in Santa Maria, where Candice Cocina does this most amazing barbacoa dish
barbacoa. Amazing.
called Yiki, or in Spanish masita, and the you could call it a mixteco style of barbacoa, and
Colleague,
it's one of my it's amazing.
it's hiki is hiki, and I think like when I used to be in the field, we would travel a lot in the Mixteca region, and the food, the fruits, the vegetables, everything was very different. Like pozole, we don't eat pozole up in the Sierra in my pueblo. Now we eat it because of course migration, but back in the days we
Right.
eat pozole, and we're like pozole with mole. And I've asked the Mixteco linguist, I'm like, what is it a mole? I'm sure you have a Mixteco name for this because it doesn't have all the ingredients of a mole, so it couldn't be a mole. So
Yes. Well, this is another issue, and that you and I sometimes get into is that there are dishes that would be classified as moles, but in the pueblo, it's not considered a mole.
I want solo mole, please don't.
Don't mole Odilia to death. But it's when you said about mezcal again. So I do give this, I do browbeat and lecture people a little bit about this Oaxaca thing when they're all like, oh, Oaxacan food is Tlayudas. I'm like, no, it's not. It's many things. Oaxaca is unique in that its 8 regions are very distinct, where other states don't have, where my family's from in Aguascalientes, we do have certain foods that you'll find in certain towns, but we don't have this separation, this really hard separation of regions. And it even separates in towns within regions, which is really makes Oaxaca the most hyper regional place in Mexico. But when you said mezcal, I know in like La Costa, they don't produce or drink mezcal.
Mhm.
They drink coronas because it's hot as fuck.
Yeah, but I think when we talk about Oaxaca, it's more than the 8 regions imposed by the nation states, right? When we
Yeah.
talk about Oaxaca, we have to talk about the 16 indigenous nations within Oaxaca. And within that 16 indigenous nation, there are 16 indigenous languages. There are 16 indigenous way of living, of worldview, and the cuisine. I mean, 16 indigenous nations, it doesn't end there. The cuisine from one pueblo to another pueblo. For example, a caldo de res in my pueblo, we use cilantro. We go to Yalala, it has avocado leaf. We go to another pueblo, it has another herb, right? Even though it's just a simple caldo de res, each pueblo makes it their own with the herbs that is available to them, with the seasoning that's available. So when we talk about Oaxaca, we have to really think about the diversity of the food, the 16 indigenous nations, over 507 municipalities, and over 570 over 507 municipalities, and within them, the pueblos, and each pueblo has a way of eating, a way of drinking. La Mixteca drinks aguardiente with herbs. We use the aguardiente for medicine, like for limpias, for different things that had to do with your spiritual healing. And in the Mixteca, you drink it, but we use the mezcal to drink. So I think it's just people just think Oaxaca, Tlayudas, and mezcal and mole. I'm sorry, but Tlayudas, I would say that Oaxaca is more than the food. It's more than the folklore. It's also a lot of resistance that nobody talks about people, trying to keep the corn, keeping the seeds of the heirloom tomatoes. When people say, "Oh, we're rescuing Oaxacan food, we're rescuing the corn." I'm sorry, you're not rescuing shit.
Go in. Let's go more into that right now. So, I did want to talk to you about this corn thing that's been going on. And, you and I have had talks about this. And there have been documentaries recently, shows, And talking about heirloom corn, and of course now I do see this, that it's going into more fancy restaurants that can afford to make heirloom corn tortillas. And there's been a lot of people getting into it, Mexican Americans, people from my community that are doing this. And yes, I've heard that language of the idea of rescuing corn and saving this tradition coming from Mexican Americans like myself. And I will agree with you that we haven't rescued shit. So, what is the big problem here with this conversation in corn? I see the owners of companies talking. I see people that are learning how to do it and grinding. They got their stone grinder and they're making tortillas, and they're getting on shows, and they're talking the talk. But we're missing what's happening in the indigenous community. So can you please correct us here? Who is actually saving this heirloom corn?
The land defenders, the people fighting to keep the water, the people fighting to keep the GMO free corn, the people that are incarcerated for defending land, for defending water, for defending the corn, the beans. And I think
Can you speak on that? How have people been incarcerated?
there are Mexico. Okay, we're gonna get into this. Mexico has a large, contrary to what we see
Yes.
in the discourse of the nation state and every politician wearing our traditional regalia, that doesn't translate to rights. Land defenders, Mexico has a large population of land defenders incarcerated. It's not safe for land defenders in the Mexican Republic. And I think when people go to a community and extract knowledge and profit from it, and yes, you write a book on corn, you call it whatever you want to call it, and you have these, but then every single person that give an opinion in your book is white. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The farmers in Oaxaca, in Mexico, and we could see, for example, Chihuahua right now, the community Raramuris are being pushed out by the organized crime because their land is so rich. And I think something that people should know is we are only 10% of the population worldwide as indigenous people, and we have 80% of the world's natural resources, which means we're constantly fighting to maintain our natural resources, to stay in the territory. And the reason we end up here is not because of the American dream, it's because we're constantly being displaced by transnational companies, by the people that come and extract knowledge. I'm not going to say whose book I read it, but they just went to visit communities, copied the kind of saw what they were doing, and made a recipe book about it. That's extraction because you have the discourse of supporting indigenous people, but if indigenous people, if you're not talking to the indigenous chefs, if you're not talking to the indigenous land defenders, if you're not talking to the people keeping the seeds, and you're talking to a white chicano, a white person promoting indigenous culture and wearing even the regalia, I mean, you have to question yourself, like, why am I not talking to an indigenous person? Why?
I see these things, and as a white Chicano, I'm just wondering, at what point do you not cringe looking at what you've produced when you are, oh, we're doing heirloom corn, and you have our friend Rick Bayless on there, and this other white chef that has a Oaxacan restaurant that does Oaxacan food, and you're not, again, bringing that money. The lowest paid person on that chain is the person they're buying the corn from and getting the recipes from. They're not paying them at all. Getting the techniques, they're not paying for that. So yes, that is when people think extraction, they think, well, oh, we're not taking any jobs away, or we're not taking any, but that knowledge that is helping people make millions of dollars, and selling corn, selling books, selling recipes, being on the Food Network. That money never makes it back to your pueblo.
No, it never, because it's extraction, right? When we talk about heirloom corn, heirloom corn, people can no longer afford to eat heirloom corn because it has become a commodity, right? For all these, because all these folks have made it so popular, they're able to charge. You're able to charge in your restaurant. You're able to charge, for your talk. To talk about corn, to talk about indigenous food. But when that person, but we contribute to that too because that internalized racism that a lot of people have, you know, that's the kind of Indian you want to see. The pretending that you want to see, the white Chicano that wears the regalia and talks about corn. That's what you visually want to see and you want to accept. You don't want to see me. You don't want to see my hands, I mean, no manicure today, but I'm giving my break. But they don't want to see us. They want everything from us, but not us. And when we talk about that, like you want our corn, you want our water, you want our land, you want our food. I mean, you talk about Mesoamerican, you talk about the Mesoamerican cuisine, but you never bring the Mesoamerican chef. You call her cocinera tradicional, but she's a chef. You went and got all your knowledge to put on your fancy restaurant, and she's not there. She's your staff. She's not your partner. She's not your business partner. So I think that is a problem. But that's a very common, and I'm sure I'm gonna get dragged for this podcast, but I'm just gonna say things the way they are. Like we have to,
We're here to be dragged. Fuck them.
you know, um, you have to stop. Because if the indigenous artisan from the clothes, from the food, are not at the table, you're just extracting. Really, there was one point where Oaxaca, the valleys was burning, and there was an influencer inviting people to Oaxaca, to the town that was burning. Why? Because he's a spokesperson for a mezcal brand. You didn't care about the people. You care about getting that paycheck. You're caring about selling this terrible mezcal, but you didn't care about the indigenous Zapotec that were being affected by the money cultivation of mezcal. So that means that's just what it is. They don't
Right.
care. They just want everything from us but us.
So again, yeah, we're saying, I mean, if you're gonna, it's obviously people are gonna open businesses and gonna look for business opportunities. But if you're gonna go, I mean, for people in my field, journalists, and you're gonna go participate in a program about corn, and you're gonna not even talk to one indigenous person, and you're not gonna talk to about how not indigenous people created corn itself. They invented nixtamal. They invented tamales. They invented tortillas. They still preserve these traditions. They still keep the corn. And if you're going to talk about some Chicanos that are, 22 years old and can't even make a tortilla, and that they're the stars saving corn, this is a stupid show. This is ignorance,
Mhm.
and it's so disrespectful. So please, let's talk to indigenous people and see what they have to say. Probably they don't want to ask because they're going to hear the truth.
Yeah, and also racism, right?
Yeah.
I want to bring in, they have great things,
Yes.
but we could better. So I'm going to be the spokesperson for them, and they don't have to participate,
Yeah.
as long as I buy corn from them. That's the attitude, and that is not okay. And, that's why one of the reasons that Cielos exists to educate people about indigenous displacements, about indigenous people's rights, and also about servicing indigenous people, right? We run this city, we run the kitchens, we run the agricultural fields, and our human rights are being violated every single day. Our language rights are being violated every single day. But the minute somebody finds, somebody making, I don't know, let's just pretend it keeps
Yes.
Tuesday. Everybody's gonna go find candy, right? But nobody brings candy to the table.
I have.
And you
I
have,
did.
but well, we're just using that example, right?
Yeah.
Once everybody finds about the geeky, everybody's going to go and everybody's going to try to make it and everybody's going to try to sell it, but they'll never bring candy to the table. And I think that is a problem
Yeah.
because this geeky is Mixteco. The Mixteco community should be represented, one, because they have the it's been a food that they've had for hundreds of years. It's their community's food, and they should be at the table when the geek is being talked about. Be it a national TV, being in a podcast, they should be speaking for. We should be speaking for our own things, but it doesn't happen always that way.
Right. No, it's very important. And and this goes back to again, this absurd discussion about tortillas de nixtamal. Now, you and I are not against tortillas de nixtamal. We like them. When I do go to certain restaurants, I do expect that's what I'm going to get because it's an expensive restaurant that can afford to do that. But when I look at, again, Candy's Cocina, something I learned the first time we went there was that they use flour tortillas, and that's an essential Oaxaca, California dish. The tortillas de harina mixtecas that happened in the camps. Can you tell me that history? Like, what? How is it that Oaxacan indigenous people are eating flour tortillas in Santa Maria?
I think we have to think that first we have to really think about colonization has not ended. It's in different ways. I mean, this displacement is still happening. We're still being pushed out by the transnational companies
Yes.
the, to our water, to our natural resources, And I think the things I heard about the Mixteca is once they came to Tijuana, working in the fields, that the tortillas didn't fold, the corn tortillas didn't fold really well, and it wasn't lasting as it should to be.
And this was a tortilla de maseca, not
Yeah,
nixtamal.
exactly. So then they kind of learned from the other Mexicans, the relatives there, to learn how to make tortillas de harina, and it became also more adjustable to take your lunches in the field, but also it was cheaper.
Right.
And this is a problem because how come the people that domesticated the corn, that created the nixtamal process, are not able to have a nutritious, delicious corn tortilla? And on top of it, they're picking your berries, they're picking your onions, they're paying, very small amount of money to do all this, and on top of it, being criminalized. So it's these are racism that indigenous people face that leads you to change even your eating habits, right?
Yeah.
We didn't when I was up in the highlands. I don't remember eating rice, but rice is not part of our meals. You have a mole, Doña Maria, or whatever. Rice is part of the meal, right? Rice and
Right.
yes, tortillas Guerrero were the first tortillas that we had access to here when in the 80s. So I don't remember when we had access to tortillas Guerrero and eating that as opposed to what we ate back home, a nice big tortilla, communal tortillas,
Right.
heirloom corn, heirloom tomatoes. I mean, this thing of the farm to the table, or what is it? The table to the farm,
Farm to table.
farm to table. It's I'm like, what is new about it? Like we've always like, oh, there's like a pot with tomato.
You grew up that way.
I grew up that way. You grab a few tomatoes, a chili, make a salsa, make a tortilla, and eat it. And when I heard this first, I'm like, so what's new about this? I mean, we've always eaten like that.
Yeah, I mean it's a beautiful, I mean, that diet of just having your big tortilla, throwing some salsa on there, or asientos as you said, and having a meal like that, all made fresh from a tortilla from Nixtamal.
But migration has led you not to be able to have access to that, but instead make a flour tortilla because it lasts longer, it folds better, it's cheaper, you know,
Right.
and then you're doing this hard work of picking berries, of being on the agricultural field, getting paid very little money, being criminalized, being targeted by ICE.
And now being under this incredible pressure of daily mass deportation forces and the ugliness. So yes, this is what's crazy about this discussion is when someone's sitting there talking about this person who's not indigenous that's selling all these books on tortillas, and meanwhile Mixtecos are running from, they're hiding, they can't even show up to pick strawberries and to afford their flour tortillas. This is lunacy,
Yes,
you know.
I think this is a criminalization of the working class, of the working poor, of people of color, right? We'll take every single drop of blood that you have, your culture, your food, your labor, everything, and you deserve nothing.
Yes, it's definitely what is leading to these big changes in Oaxaca, California, as you said, these disruptions and the transnational corporations and government and the political situation in the United States that has transformed the food, but it still resists. You are about to open with Poncho Lugia. It's going to be a continuation of Poncho's Tlayudas and with that menu, but it's also going to feature foods from your hometown and his hometown and the Sierra Norte. But only in recent years have we heard about Sierra Norte here in restaurants, but you guys have been around for a while. There was a restaurant in 2002 called Yalalag. Do you remember this restaurant? Do you know who were the owners of that and what was the food like?
I don't remember the owners, but they brought in like food from the region, right? So Yalala is the place where you buy huaraches, where the butchers are, where they're known for the quality of meat and the butchers, and of course, no comparison to a northern Mexico Sonora style meat. It's just very different. The jerkies,
Right.
the dehydrated, curated in salt, costillas for caldo de res, for you preserve it for months and years, because that was the way of living back in the day, right? So we just have to clarify that, because I know some haters out there, Oaxaca doesn't have good meat. Well, it's not that it doesn't have good meat. It's cooked differently. It's kept differently in most of. So Yalalag is known for that. If you need a good piece of meat, the meat that Poncho serves on at the pop-up is from Mayalalteco, because that's what they're known for, the killing the cow, bringing in all the meats. And I might be saying this wrong, you could drag me too, I don't know if you've seen a cow. Oh, but anyways, you know and they had stuff from that region at that time.
And there's a tortilleria that's making tortillas. They're from Yalalag as well.
Yes, they're from Yalalag, and I think Sierra Norte has been here, like I said, since the Bracero program. They have been in the kitchen for a very long time, and again, I'm only speaking on what I know of the Sierra Norte. But I think for me, like when I hear the Sierra Norte food, I'm always excited. I'm very excited that Serranos are out there,
Yeah,
the food up in this space. We're having Sierra Norte food
it's becoming common somewhat. Um, there's Betasa Mini Market with Sol.
with Sol, who's amazing, powerful woman. Yes.
Yes, one powerful woman. I agree. She's bringing in her own aguardiente, which is very good.
Yes.
So pick up her aguardiente. Go to the definitely support Betasa Mini Market for their products and for the food. Casa Tlayuda is also from
Casa de las Tlayudas, she's from Yalala too.
yes.
Yes. I think I get very excited when I see my the Serranos opening businesses, and of course there's other businesses that they have open, from not only in the restaurant but in the garment, also in the dry cleaning. But since we're talking about food, every time I hear like, oh, there's a new place opening, there's a Yalalteca tortilleria, it excites me, because you know we're bringing a very different type of food, style of food, to this world that only knows Tlayudas, mole, and mezcal. There's more than
And again, we love those things, but there's more to Oaxaca. There's more to the indigenous communities than that.
mole are delicious. Mezcal is amazing.
Yes.
You know, and Tlayudas are amazing. I can't complain about Tlayudas. We sell Tlayudas, but these are things that are Zapotec Valley foods, which are another like world. The Zapotec Valley foods is its own world of amazing cuisine, right? It's an amazing cuisine, and it's opened the doors to many of us here in the U.S. But there's also other foods. Like, wait until you try tamales. Wait until you try.
It's really amazing again against so much and these community, all the talk that's been happening on the news and on the social networks about these ice raids right now. We Everyone says the word Latinos and Mexicans, but a lot of these people are indigenous, and your organization is working with those people. But the restaurants that are out there that are still risking themselves every day are a lot of these indigenous restaurants. I've seen on Facebook and other pages, people that sell tamales from Oaxaca are really scared to sell. But the mijes have been out there. They have not given one, given up at all. They're still out there working. Leos, for a lot of people that don't know, all the Al Pastor taquerias are, a lot of them are from they're Mije people, and that's Leos Tacos, Tamix, Los Palomos.
Ukinlista. I think it's amazing to see Sierra Norte, because in the Sierra Norte lives Zapotecs from the Sierra Norte, Chinantecs, and Mijes.
Right.
So it's exciting to see all this food coming out, like tamales Mijes. I think what we see right now in LA with the rates, people are very scared. So I invite your audience to support indigenous owned businesses.
Yes.
Question: you're seeing a Chicano, white Chicano in a Guayabera selling you a taco. Question that. Or selling you a tamal en hojas de plátano. Question that. Look for that person, that indigenous woman, that mije man, that Zapotec woman selling their tamales in the corner. Buy from them because that's where the real flavor is. Nothing against the Chicanos. I have wonderful Chicano friends. Of course, we're talking to one today, but I think always rethink who are you buying your food from.
Yeah, it's very important to look to indigenous businesses, and those ones we mentioned, those are all indigenous. All the Oaxacan restaurants in town are in the Zapoteco community. These Al Pastor places we're talking about are, anyone named Martinez that owns a taqueria is probably from the Mije region.
I think it's people assume that they're Latinos,
Right.
and I always tell people, listen to what the taqueros are speaking when they're making your order. It's not Zapotec, it's not Spanish. Well, it's not Spanish or it's not English. It's an indigenous language.
Indigenous language, yeah.
Ask what it is. LA County has 37 indigenous languages. We did a research with USC, with Cielo, and that's how what we found out. 37 indigenous languages spoken here, and that's just not even talking about the different variants, right? And that's 37 indigenous language from Mexico and Guatemala in LA County. So imagine the diversity of food that comes with those languages.
Yeah, and look, all the food comes from there, all of it. So when we call Mexican traditions, we are talking about food that was invented by indigenous people. And of course, yes, it's changed over the years, and it's got, the menu expands, the banquet expands, but the roots are always indigenous, and that's throughout Mesoamerica. That's El Salvador, Guatemala, these other countries as well that have strong indigenous cultures.
Imagine what would the world be without tomatoes or without potatoes.
Right. And again, these are not just,
Yep. Have their fries.
they weren't just cultivated foods. Those foods were created by indigenous people. They were seed grafting, and over many years to develop the modern tomato. I mean, these are genetically modified foods. And Poncho's Tlayudas, there is a Oaxacalifornia, total 100% Oaxacalifornia approach to the cuisine that a lot of people don't realize. They're just, oh, these are Tlayudas. We love Tlayudas. They're from Oaxaca. They're from the Valles Centrales. But how is Poncho's Tlayudas Oaxaca, California?
In Oaxaca, you don't need Tlayudas with morcilla.
That's right.
Right? The blood sausage is something that my family has been doing for generations, from Manuel Modesto to Otto Modesto to Everardo Romero and now to Alfonso Martinez, because I'm a great cook and I could be a chef if I wanted to, but it's not my thing. My thing is human rights, and it was, it's something that we're keeping this tradition of the blood sausage, and it's an amazing blood sausage. I had it for breakfast yesterday. It never ceases to amaze me.
Yeah.
I'll stop, I'll try it every, when it's boiling and he puts it out of the water. I'll cut a piece and I'm like, oh, it's so amazing. And then I'll eat it fried, and then I'll eat it grilled, and I'll just eat it as a charcuterie with cold meats, and a glass of wine. And I'm like, this is just an amazing, amazing, delicious blood sausage.
I'd argue that it's probably the best piece of charcuterie available in Los Angeles.
I wouldn't counter argue you. I agree.
You go to Forget You, Malise, all these other restaurants. They can't touch this sausage. It's amazing. And what's crazy about it is that only Poncho and your mother are allowed to make this recipe here in town, right?
Well, it's a recipe that was inherited by my great grandfather to his children, and then to my dad. So it's a family recipe for generations. Which that's why they're the only ones that are able to make it. People have tried to imitate it, but it's not the same. This
Right.
recipe has been kept for a long time. My mom migrated here in the late 70s. No, yeah, in the late 70s, she started making it here in a small apartment on Union Avenue and 6th Street. People went crazy when she made it because they're like, "Oh my God, a piece of home." You know,
Yeah.
we owe a woman from the Sierra came last Friday, and she's like, "I heard." She tells me in Zapotec, "I heard that you guys have a blood sausage that tastes like home." I'm like, "Yeah, we do." She's like, "I get to decide that because my dad used to do it." I'm like, "Okay, okay, okay." When an auntie comes and tells you this, you're like, "Okay, humble yourself down." And she did. She's like, "It tastes like home,"
Right.
and I'm like, "That's all we need to hear." When somebody tells us it tastes like home, I don't care if we never get a Michelin. I don't care if those people never come to our office. We don't need an award because the award comes from the community when they tell you the food tastes like home. Poncho, these black beans taste like home. We serve a very particular black beans during funeral, and every time they call them to do these beans because they taste like home. And I think that's all we need to hear is like,
Right.
it tastes like home. Once an elder comes and tells you that, that's it. That's all the awards that you ever want. If you ever lose that flavor, then
Yes.
you're not home.
And so, right. So this binational relationship that you have with your hometowns allows for things like this to happen. And of course, the Zapoteco, there are some Zapotecos that have come to your to the pop up, and they've complained that it's not a traditional tlayuda, and you're like, yeah, it's not. It's stuffed with chorizo, which they don't do there. They don't do that there. You get chorizo on the side, and you get the tasajo, and then they have cecina. You guys don't serve cecina. Instead, you do the blood sausage. And so you've changed this here. You've married two regions and Poncho's own style because there are dishes that change here. There's the flour tortillas in Santa Maria. There are just about every single Valle Centrales restaurant here has burrito de mole, which is something very Oaxaca, California. LA people are burrito lovers, so making a mole burrito is something you find at a lot of the Oaxacan restaurants here in town. And this is really something that's special because, like, as a Mexican American, our traditions change in a different way because we don't have necessarily that strong connection. Now, recent migrants, somebody who just moved here from Sinaloa or somebody who just moved here from Mexico City, might will bring that tradition because they're still fresh.
Mhm.
But when you've been removed for generations, you don't have that strong of a connection. But you guys are maintaining that through these foods and places like Ponchos Tlayudas that celebrates your region and also a popular Oaxacan dish that people know.
Yeah, people love Tlayudas. They're amazing. Like I say, I tried Tlayuda when I went back as a migrant. I never had it back in the Highlands when I was a child. Now that Tlayuda, they're selling them at the patron saint celebration. There's a Tlayuda stand, but that comes with migration, right? So I think migration has brought some stuff like the flour tortilla, that Tlayuda getting up into the Highlands. The mole is getting into the Highlands, but we've also made adjustments to it. What would be a really cool tlayuda that has all the ingredients of the asiento, the quesillo, the amazing black beans, but also its own twist to be Oaxacalifornia style. There was even a song written about this famous tlayuda by Poncho with La Cafeteras, Oaxacan love song number 2 that talks about the tlayudas, that talks about it because it's so delicious, but it's so unique, and it's like it's not every Oaxacan eats it, or it's not in every pueblo, but it's now it is like what people when they think Oaxaca they think
Right.
tlayudas, they think mezcal, they think mole, But for us, they're in for a treat. We're just cooking whatever we eat at home. Like you're gonna get a taco de chintefle. That's what you're gonna get when you come to.
So yeah, so now with Lugia, which is opening soon in the Maidan market, it's people you're going to introduce people to dishes from your towns. And can you talk a little bit about? I know you can't really give away the menu, but right now, but maybe talk about how you're going to expand that menu or types of dishes you're going to use. And also, there's going to be some Oaxaca, California elements because again, you're bringing the Tlayudas in, but you're also adding other things that are going to be popular, and it's going to be in Adams and it's going to be in the Maidan market, so you have to consider that crowd. So tell me, what first of all, what does Lugia mean?
Lugia means is like the soul, the heart, the center of the market, the face. So it's usually in the markets in the pueblo, it's in the center square. So that way, yeah, which means it's my version of Zapotec. Lugia is his version of Zapotec, right? It's
Yes.
so in my variant, that way, yeah, in his variant is Lugia, because that's the other thing. We're both Zapotecs, but we could never have a conversation in Zapotec. I don't agree with his cooking with guajillo. I don't like him, but he loves cooking with guajillo, and a lot of his dishes has guajillo. You know, but that's just
Yeah. I love how I mean I tease you with the word stubborn sometimes, but I love how like fiercely individual each community is, and it's really what keeps the food intact. It keeps it from outside influence. And I mean, we're not talking about Oaxaca, California, but back in Oaxaca, how each community really retains its own foods. And when it comes here, even though there might be some Oaxaca, California transformations, you really do hang on to your flavors and your ingredients in a way that's very different than people just like, oh, I want to keep it, people, somebody from Italy who's coming here and opening. Oh, I want to have the flavors from home. It means more than flavors from home to you.
no. For example, the menu for Lugia, which is the center, the heart of the market, it talks about Poncho's childhood, what he ate as a child.
Right.
And we have to remember that he went to a boarding school. He's a musician too. He's a clarinet player. So what he ate in the Mije region, and at this boarding school, and what he ate as a Zapotec in Oaxaca, California. So that's gonna be the menu.
Wow, it's going to be very interesting. So yeah, we can't tease it here now, but definitely you're opening Lugia at a time when the ice raids have kind of slowed down a little bit. I mean, you're the best person to ask. Do you see it sort of tapering off at the moment?
Right now, they're kind of calm, but we know that they made promises of intensifying the rates, of continuing of criminalization of workers, poor people, people of color, documented or not, because so we don't think they're going to stop. We think they're going to continue. And as far as us with Cielo, we're prepared to support the community with food boxes. Since the raid started, we've distributed and delivered more than 1,000 food boxes to families. And these food boxes are amazing. It has chicken, it has rice, it has organic masa powder, masa flour, vegetables, fruit, chiles, tomatoes. We are very thoughtful about the food that we distribute because these are Mesoamericans. At the end of the day, the people that receive these boxes are Mesoamericans from Guatemala, from Oaxaca, from Yucatan. So we are thoughtful of they need chiles, they need a frijol
Right, you're giving them food that they'll enjoy. That could,
that they will enjoy, that they could make a call with, right? For in case of the Maya Yucatecos, they could make call with the ingredients we give them, and the Oaxacan could make an amarillo with it.
right.
So that while they're in this in this human rights violation state that we live,
These are people that are having to stay home right now.
these are people that are having to stay home. And I think when we talk about the rates of people that have been impacted are indigenous people largely. The Mexican consulate has shared with us there are over 113 indigenous people that have been captured, but we know those numbers are low.
Right.
Mostly impacted is Oaxaca, Guerrero, Yucatan, what else? Guerrero, Oaxaca, Yucatan, Veracruz. So indigenous people are being deeply impacted, and what happened in Oxnard is mostly indigenous people, Mixtecos, Zapotecos, that were kidnapped, right? So, but we only provide services here in Los Angeles. So we're doing cash solidarity for indigenous people. It's $500. It's not going to get you nowhere because the rent here is above $2,000, but we're doing what we can with what we have.
Yes.
So if people want to support Cielo, please donate to our website. Tax deductible donation. You could go ahead and make your donation.
So yes, it's very important right now. Well, it's what you guys are doing is very important, but also there's a lot of indigenous businesses that are being hurt right now. The taquerias. This is not a time to say forget about your favorite place to go, but go to Leo's, go to Tamix, go to Los Palomos, go to all the Oaxacan restaurants in town are all indigenous owned. I went to Casa Gishpak recently and on a Saturday, and they were empty. They were completely empty, which is crazy. And we were glad to be there. Put some social media out about it, but it's really hard for everybody right now. And those are the people when you're those raid on the marijuana farm up there in Ventura County. Those were indigenous people that are out there working these farms. That's farm workers are mostly indigenous people. They're mostly Mixteco, then Zapotecos, and other indigenous groups. They're not Latinos or Chicanos, not people like me. They're indigenous people.
I think yeah, it's important to support for us as Poncho's Tlayudas. June was a terrible month, right? Hope June, mid July, last week it picked up a little. But also, we're in the last three servings, 3 Fridays left, I believe.
So this Friday, can you give me the 3 dates? Give us the last 3 dates for Ponchos Tlayudas.
Let me see, the 2nd, the 9th, and the 16th, I think. Yeah, this is the first, 8, and the 16th. The 16th would probably it's probably our last Friday.
Okay, so yeah, we want people to go. Ponchos Tlayudas has also had a hard time, and they're about to open a business, Lugia in the Maidan Market. So this Friday, August 1st, and then the following, the 8th and the 16th.
Yes.
It's probably going to be your last chance to experience Ponchos Tlayudas in its current location. So please go out, and if you can't, Venmo them, send some money, or help send some money to Cielo. Indigenous businesses need your help right now. And of course, we really want everybody to go there. When you open Lugia, it's still going to be, under what's happening right now. We have no idea when this starts to escalate again, or how long it's going on, or what's happening next. It's almost more scary right now that it's gotten slow. It makes you wonder, what they have planned. So when Lugia opens, if you are free to move about the cabin, if you're able to go out, please go out and support this indigenous business.
I think for us, it's very important. Please donate to Cielo so we can continue supporting indigenous families. We have 3 years ahead of us that we don't know how things are gonna play out. What are they gonna do? What are their plans? But we always have to take care of each other. And I think we've learned during the pandemic, as humanity, the governments are not gonna take care of you. We're gonna have to take care of each other. We have to take care of each other's businesses. In the pandemic, we did it. We could do it again. It's gonna be 3 more years and the fact that if another party comes in, that doesn't guarantee that you're going to have a right. Even if they stay, it still doesn't guarantee that you're going to have a right. So we have to work together, stick together, support each other in businesses, support the nonprofits that are doing amazing work, the grassroots. A shout out to Unión del Barrio, who are doing an amazing work too out there, and all the nonprofits that are, from the ones taking the legal fight, the grassroots fight, providing these services. I think we need all the support that we can get right now to continue servicing indigenous people. In the case of Cielo, for the businesses, please go have a taco, go have a tlayuda, a ponchos, go have a quesadilla at the street vendor. Go and just support, because we're only gonna make it if we get the support from the community by coming to eat and hanging out and For us as Cielo, we appreciate all the love and support that we've gotten so far. For Ponchos, I think this is exciting moment for him
It
and for
is.
the whole team, but also it's like a bittersweet, right? Because you guys I can't really talk about it, but it'll be a very beautiful surprise for all of you. New dishes, new flavors, but the backyard vibe are gone. His funny playlist that he has that everybody loves. Like, can we get a copy of the playlist? That's not going to be played anymore. The blood sausage, it's gonna be there because and you're gonna have like you have a surprise on the blood sausage as well. So follow
Oh,
Ponchos, follow Lugia, and his team will be posting what's coming up, and it's exciting moments for all of us. But also the reminder, people like be in solidarity with the brothers and sisters out there that can go out. If you're willing to drive for an organization to deliver a food, if you're able to donate, please do so. If you're able to go grocery shopping for someone, please volunteer in any organization, volunteer at Cielo, whatever you can help. If you're able, if you have the time to go volunteers, please do so. So
yes, and yes, please do that. And I did show up last Friday to Poncho's Tlayudas, and that probably will be my last time I'm able to go. But I still remember the first time I walked in your doors.
you're not coming to the party?
When's the party?
We're gonna announce, so you have to stay tuned to his social media.
Okay, okay. Well, if there's going to be a party, I'll come
Okay,
to that.
yeah,
Yeah,
party.
but I still remember the first time I walked into your doors there in, I want to say, December of 2017,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere around there. And so it's a special place for me too, that I've enjoyed a lot of wonderful evenings with you guys there. So I'm going to miss it as well. But I can't wait to go to Lugia. I will be there on day one. Let me know soon. I don't want to plan any travel and miss it.
Reservation and open table.
Open open table. Yeah. Okay. Odilia, thank you for coming on and talking to me. And I'm so proud of what you're doing there at Cielo, and really looking forward to Lugia.
Can't wait to have you there by the fire.
Okay. See you by the fire. Thank you for tuning in to the Taquiando podcast this week. And be sure to tune in next week for another episode. And please leave us a rating or review wherever you listen to your podcasts.